This episode of Tearing It Up is brought to you by No-So patches, made for flair or repair. No-So is all about adding flair to the gear you already love. It can be your favorite ski shell, an old puffy, a backpack, a hat, anything. Make it stand out from the crowd with a fun No-So patch. We all need a pop of color, some personality, and a reminder that our gear can tell a story. Again, you don't have to be repairing it to add the flair. Throw on patches anywhere, anytime. Check out nosopatches.com and use code FLARINITUP for 15% off your next order. That's Flarin' It Up. FLARINITUP. That's a long one. Flarin' It Up for 15% off. Hello, everybody out there. Welcome back to another episode of Tearing It Up. We've got an amazing guest for you today. We have Steph from Tits Deep for breast cancer. If you guys have been listening along in the last few weeks, you may have heard us mention her. We met her in person at Rome Fest. So this is our first recording since Rome Fest with someone who we met there and had conversations with and got to chat with one-on-one, and also some short and sweet little pop-up interviews that we did at Rome Fest that are popping up on social media throughout the next couple weeks. Probably we'll see how long it takes me to get them all out. But Steph made an appearance there and talked about her experience at Rome Fest. But we're pretty stoked to dive into this conversation today to talk more about breast cancer awareness, because a lot of our audience is in this age range where you really have to advocate for yourself to get to the doctor and to get these appointments. And so Steph and Tits Deep for breast cancer have great resources out there, and we'll let her tell the story on how this all came to be in her experience with it. And Amber also, those of you who don't know Amber personally, you'll get to hear her story with breast cancer as well, and how it's touched her life, because I think it's touched many of us out there. Cancer has in many forms, but again, I think this conversation is just very important for a lot of our audience out there who's in that age group where you maybe feel kind of stuck and confused about what you can do for your own health if you have these concerns. So, Steph, first off, where in the world are you as we record today?
I am in Aspen, Colorado.
Awesome. Also,
Beautiful.
I am so happy, especially that we're doing this right now, because it is a Sunday evening, and I know for all of us, we're in the middle of everything. So I just really appreciate that we could come together today to have this really, I think, what's going to be meaningful and impactful conversation. So thank you there, Steph. But I also let's get into it and tell us a little bit about yourself, your kind of journey into Tits Deep, where it all started for you.
So, I guess the origin would be me moving out to Aspen after graduating from UCF in Orlando, and I was a little hesitant to leave the coast because I started surfing my freshman year and became one-track minded about it and hadn't gone, more than 2 weeks without surfing, and all of a sudden, I get a job in Aspen and have to go live at elevation and be landlocked, but it really did feel like the right move at the time, and reflecting back, I can see how that is. Um, so I learned how to snowboard out here. I learned a lot about how to live in the mountains, and my second or third winter here, I met Nadine, and we became best friends over those next few winters. And in 2020, she got diagnosed with stage 3 triple negative breast cancer. And that really hit home for me because it was the first time in my life that I had perspective as an adult, what my mom and my family would have gone through when she got diagnosed in her early 30s. Um, so I made a promise to myself that I would just figure out any way to help Nadine. And after months and months of thinking of a campaign name, I came across what could have been way obvious and not have to take me 6 months of brainstorming is my light bulb moment of the words "tits deep," which we would have said that phrase in that time span, I'm sure. But when I when I put 2 and 2 together, like, "Oh my gosh, Tits Deep, that's what we say on a big powder day," and me and Nadine are, like, number 1 pal buddies, it's perfect. Um, I really took that idea and ran with it, and it's become our logo today, the winter goggles with Tits Deep in the middle, but before I even knew we'd blow up into anything more than 1 box of stickers, I showed up to Buttermilk Mountain, which is where me and Nadine were snowboard instructors for years, and started selling stickers out of my instructor jacket and started really, like, being vocal about what I was doing and why and for who, and we gained a lot of traction and support for my friend, and around month 2, I was able to hand her, like, just over $11,000, and that to me was kinda like wrapping up the campaign for her,
Mhm.
but I knew I couldn't stop.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, did what sparked it in you to decide to make stickers and raise money for her? Like, was it just for some extra help because insurance wasn't covering things, or was it outside of the medical bills, like the fact that maybe she wasn't able to work and covering other bills? Can you share a little bit about why or where, like, the raising of funds was helpful most for her?
So, she wasn't able to work, she had surmounting medical bills, so for her, it was coming from every angle.
Mhm.
My motivation was anytime we would hang out or catch up, she was really feeling really weighed down by the medical bills, so when I started selling the Tits Deep stickers, um, I wanted to just help alleviate her, financial stresses because that's kind of the last thing I think anyone going through such heavy cancer treatment needs to be worried about and stressed about
Yes.
because, any amount of stress in the body is kind of, um not helpful when it comes to healing.
Mhm.
So that was for me why I started selling the stickers. And I just wanted to do something unique and meaningful.
Yeah.
And I really didn't think it would grow into a 501(c)(3) nonprofit.
Yeah, it's amazing what you've grown in, like, a relatively short amount of time as well, and I think that just speaks to how much this disease affects people, and, like, cancer just runs rampant these days, all different forms, and then especially breast cancer too, and there's so many organizations out there, again, for, like, all different kinds of cancer, but I feel like it can be hard to sift through that noise sometimes and figure out, like, I don't know, the organizations that speak to you. So the fact that, like, it's Tits Deep, I mean, the audience for it obviously can be anybody, but I think you're also speaking to younger women or, outdoors folks, and I don't know, just welcoming them in to the conversation where maybe they might feel a little uncomfortable or not know where to go. So I think it's just amazing, like I said, that it's speaking to kind of a different audience that in another way maybe wouldn't know how to, like, enter the conversation. And then you also spoke about a little bit your mom getting diagnosed in her early 30s. So was that your first experience with breast cancer and having someone close to you with it?
Yeah, because me and my twin brother were 2 years old. My little brother was 9 months old. So,
Wow.
I don't have any recollection of that experience of her going through treatment. I don't even think I have any physical memories of my mom at all. And if I do, sometimes I wonder if they're dreams or if they
Mhm,
happened, but I was so young that I can't differentiate between the 2.
mhm,
And so growing up, I didn't know anyone else who was affected by breast cancer, and a part of me now realizes that probably the reason why that is because no one really talks about it, because the moment I started campaigning for Nadine and was really loud about it, a lot of people started pouring out their stories to me through
mhm,
Instagram. And, when we go to our live events or we vend at events or out in the open as an organization, it's insane the amount of people that come up to us and share their different accounts of how they've been impacted by breast cancer. So, it's just kinda wild that from age 2 to age 29, I really don't think I knew anyone else who had had any sort of struggles in their life relating to breast cancer.
Yeah, I mean, being so young and not having really any of those memories, I'm curious, like, with your family kind of growing up, was it an open dialogue in your family about your mom's passing or breast cancer? Like, did you know much about it? Or if it came up through life, would it be through seeing other organizations or like Breast Cancer Awareness Month? Like, and or did it kinda sit, like, in this place in your mind that it was there obviously affected you greatly, but it wasn't until, like, it happened with Nadine that it kind of hit you more in the face?
Yeah, I would say the 3rd. My family kinda went into, like, survival mode and just, like, make it happen, raise the kids. My grandmother ended up adopting me and my brothers, my maternal grandmother, and then we would see my dad on the weekends, and that was in part due to his lack of financial resources and then his emotional and mental state at the time. So yeah, it was like we didn't talk a lot about my mom. Um, we didn't mention her, her treatment and, her having breast cancer. And it wouldn't really come up again till my early 20s when I had a couple of close relatives who were in their 60s at the time voice their concerns about me getting my mammogram and starting to pursue my preventative treatment measures. But I always like wanted to feel a part of the breast cancer community and I never really knew how to do it or where to go. And anytime I kind of saw any like glimmers of an organization, it's just something that never really drew me in and where I felt like I belong because of being kind of in this gray area of I'm not a survivor, I'm not a caregiver, I'm not a previvor because I don't have a gene mutation, yet I do have, a higher than 20% lifetime risk, which puts me in that high risk category for additional um, types of screening. So that's kind of why when Tits Deep started hearing other people's stories while I was out campaigning for my one friend, is kinda when I made that connection of, "Oh, like, we gotta keep going because there's this huge gap that needs to be filled." Because if there's this many people that are starting to open up to a stranger on Instagram, there's gotta be a whole lot more out there, and we've definitely proven that out there in the wild, wherever Tits Deep goes. But, yeah, it's like it really does impact every single person so differently, and so it's really neat that Tits Deep, takes that extra measure to ensure that everyone feels incredibly included,
Yeah.
I never want anyone to feel like they don't belong here because of the ways in which they've been impacted by the disease.
Yeah, I like how you said you felt kind of like in a gray area, that you were greatly affected by this, but at such a age where, like, hard to put the emotions and feelings, I'm sure, together that, like, linger throughout your life, but again, you're like, "Well, I don't really remember, like, what's this from, and how do I interact with others?" Because I wasn't like, I don't remember what happened when my family was going through it, and I think a lot of people can probably resonate with it, and I'm sure, Amber, you can in ways too because you were
Absolutely.
older, but still at a age where, like, I don't know, there's maybe there is now, it just because information is so much more readily available and there's, like, a lot more social media and things and ways for people to connect, but in the early 2000s, there wasn't, like, Facebook groups where kids, like, could,
Yeah.
going through the same thing, maybe could have support groups, at least not easily found or, again, accessible for whatever reasons. But Amber, if you wanna share, some of your experience as well and where you felt that you fit in with the if you had any feelings like that too about finding a place in that community.
Absolutely. I was, in my high school years when my mom was battling breast cancer, so from the ages of, like, 13 to 17, and when you're just trying to exist, it's it's very hard to, wrap your brain around what is actually happening when someone like your mom is battling breast cancer. I remember when we first met, Stephanie, you had mentioned that you started Tits Deep because you didn't feel a strong connection with, like, the pink ribbon and that whole thing, and I have absolutely felt the same way. So I think it's super great that you have started this organization through snowboarding and surfing, your passions. It just makes more people on the outskirts of the pink ribbon, the stereotypical pink ribbon, to like find a place to meet their people, to open up, to talk about these things. And yeah, it's really opened up stuff for me too. So thank you. I also scheduled my first mammogram recently, so I'll be getting that done here next month in the next few weeks. So really great things have come out of meeting you for me. So thank you for all that you do and sharing your stories.
That's
Amber,
amazing.
how old was your mom? Early 40s? Mid
She
40s?
Yeah, she was 49 when she passed away and she was 45 when she got diagnosed. So a little bit older than the 30s that I've been hearing recently, but still very young. And
Yeah.
it was a very aggressive type of breast cancer. She had what is called a inflammatory breast cancer, and it is very ugly, very aggressive, and relatively rare. Um, so it's very important that I get checked. I haven't looked into the genetic testing yet, but I'm kind of like, okay, got baby's first mammogram on the books. We'll like take that as a milestone. And then I'm definitely going to look into the genetic testing and see what's going on in my genes. And hopefully, nothing surprising pops up. But I always like question in my head, like, no matter what type of cancer anyone may potentially get diagnosed with, I have this question of like, what would I do? How would I
Yeah.
address it? And I remember when we met, Stephanie, you showed me that video of the two friends who one person took a more naturopath kind of way and the other person adapted those ways, but also took like did treatment, did chemo, did radiation, and the person who took the more natural approach unfortunately didn't make it. And I'm sure there's many other factors that go into that, but it's wild. Cancer is a scary thing,
It
and it
is,
is pretty
and
taboo.
yeah, I mean, you know, everything's just so different, and every person's different. Everyone reacts to anything with any kind of illness, right? A lot of physical things as well as mental, I'm sure, come into it. As you
Mhm.
mentioned, Steph, like stress, right? So the financial burden that's placed on anyone in this country who has a medical issue, um, is extreme and really can prevent the healing process from whatever it is, simply an injury. Amber's going in for knee surgery the day that this episode comes out, everyone. So I hope
Yep.
that you are wishing her well, as you're listening to this, because she'll be coming out of her second knee surgery. But even something like that, seems relatively, just kind of everyday, like simple in terms of like other surgeries or things that coming back from an injury like that, even can your mental state is so important, because even that can mess up and slow down the healing of your knee. So especially
Yep.
when you're fighting something that's so aggressive like a cancer, a disease that is like terminal or like very threatening to be terminal, it's
Mhm.
so important. And I mean, having the fact that we have to rely on organizations, nonprofits to maybe help some people out, or education to, because our health system and insurance and all that is so fucked up, is a whole other thing and issue. But I'm just so happy that they also exist, at least for awareness, because what I was getting to with asking Amber about how old your mom was, at Steph, your mom and Nadine were in their mid-30s. You've been getting mammograms for a while now. Amber just, scheduled her first one. You're both in your 30s, and what do you know what is considered, like, early for getting breast cancer? I mean, I know getting it's so hard to schedule anything if you're under 40, but do they have, like, a average age or anything about when it's more likely that people get breast cancer?
Well, I wanna say it's over 45 because the FDA guidelines just lowered from 45 to 40, I
Wow.
wanna say
That
last year, for the mammogram. Um, and I think that's why there's a lack of support, medically speaking, for women under 40 because a lot of studies focus on women, I think, postmenopausal. Um, and there's, uh there's this kind of, um, outlook that, when women go to their doctors and they find a lump or they're showing symptoms of breast cancer, that a lot of times their doctor will say, "You're too young," and go home and it's nothing.
My
So,
gosh.
um, yeah, I mean, I think that's why there's just not enough resources out there for us.
Mhm.
and it's wild because I feel like, honestly, if I think about the women that I have heard stories of more recently or know, and not that I know very well, but I think Jill, who is the Tahoe ambassador for Tits Deep, and my boyfriend's stepsister, your mother Nadine, like, all these women are in their 30s or were in their 30s, and like I said, and this has been, long span since all of these women were diagnosed, that it's insane to think that there are things holding us back that to
Mhm.
keep us healthy. And that's again just such a crack in our medical system. Absolutely insane that we have to advocate as hard as we do to be able to get a mammogram or anything like that, even with or especially without, like, family history or anything, especially and with this day and age too, where there is just more and more cancers coming out and more earlier than ever before. Um, so it's again just one of those really frustrating things with, like, the protests that happened this past weekend and just women's health in general. It feels insane because I've comparing this to, like, men and prostate cancer, I don't know, I'm curious if they do have to advocate this hard for themselves at a certain age, like, to get a colonoscopy or the exams they need. Um, I think that it feels like almost anyone could probably go in and get a colonoscopy a little easier than, like, getting a mammogram. I mean, I could be completely wrong, I don't know, that's why I'm very curious if there is a struggle similar to this with men, because right now in my mind, I'm just thinking about the absolute idiocracy that's going on that preventing women's healthcare.
Yeah. Yep. And I feel like oftentimes women aren't like people don't believe women when they're like, "Oh, I have this going on with my body." And they're like, "Nah, no you don't." And you're like, "Well, okay, this is my body. Let me tell
Yeah,
you." So just advocating for
absolutely.
yourself is the most
Mhm.
important thing you can do, and researching and, just, like, attaining all the knowledge, and hopefully you have insurance, and if you don't, there's financial aid, you know what I mean? There's so many more things in this life that are more daunting than medical bills, you know? Although they are very heavy, don't get me wrong, but your life is more important.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, like, yeah, exactly, being alive, but, you mentioned, something about, like, women and not being taken seriously. There is a podcast series called Hysteria, have you guys heard of it?
No.
You should look it up, but it's about so a hysterectomy, hysteria, like, women were hysteria can be a, um, like, does a mental thing where it's you're kind of almost like what's it, when you're a placebo kind of like thing that it's happening. The illness isn't really happening to you, but the hysteria that is caused from people in the surrounding like makes a whole community like think they're crazy. And it's like hysterectomies are tied back to that idea of hysteria and women being like crazy and all that. It's wild. Y'all out there should definitely like look it up and have a listen, because it's the fact that, again, these things are still thought in our medical system, that it is very known and still shown that women are not taken as serious. Their pain thresholds are much higher, which sometimes, like, to our detriment because, like, we're
Yes.
not taking like, "Oh, what do you mean that doesn't hurt?" kind of thing, but, yeah, that it's 2025, and we're still not believed about how much pain we're in or how much we could handle before we decided to go to the doctor, um, but, we digress a little bit. I mean, it all ties in for sure, but, Steph, I would really love to know, with after you handed this $11,000 check to Nadine and you had that feeling of like, you thought handing over this check would kind of be, that's it. I did this for my friend, and it was so awesome to see and to do, but you did that and it was actually like, I'm not done yet.
Yeah.
So what were the next steps for you after handing that check over? Where did Tits Deep go from that? And also, please feel free to share anything you want to with Nadine's story as well.
I naturally leaned towards merchandise. Didn't really know what I was doing, but, kind of just followed my intuition. So we ordered a bunch of trucker hats. Those sold really well. And I made some connections in June where I met some vendors at Telluride Yoga Festival, told them what I was doing with Tits Deep, and one of them offered their spare table at the Basalt Farmers Market, which is the town over from Aspen. So I was going every Sunday, um, slowly building up the merch collection, which was being very well received. And then we organized our very first women's mountain bike day, which we call Tits and Trails, with one of our local ski outerwear companies called Strafe, who have been incredibly supportive since the beginning. And Nadine actually used to work for their retail storefront. Um, and it's really cool to see because from our very first event, and then yesterday we had an event out in Boulder, um, so much has happened, so many people have been involved. We've, um, we do seasonal, so we do ski events, and then in the summertime, we focus mostly on mountain biking, and, I really took my time with growing it. I never felt like I needed to pressure myself or to prove anything. I just wanted to learn and continue showing up in a way that I knew how to do. And I still kind of consider myself a novice and a bit clueless, but I've definitely learned a lot along the way. And to see that after lots of thought and reaching out to different people, to see that we've become officially recognized by the IRS as a 501(c)(3) who can fulfill our own mission without having to be under the umbrella of somebody else's organization is huge, and we still have such a long way to go. We're still waiting to launch our grant program, which will help financially aid women who are struggling to get their mammograms covered by insurance.
Wow.
Um, so it's cool to see that the idea for our mission was to aid early detection treatment
Mhm.
because Amber just said she's only now just getting her first mammogram. And I didn't start until I was 30 years old getting mammograms, which I could have started when I was 23, 10 years before your relative was diagnosed, or maybe even earlier than that. And the reason why I didn't get mammograms in my early 20s is because I didn't have health insurance. And when I would research financial aid for my mammogram, I would stumble upon other nonprofit organizations online and I'd scroll their page to figure out how to apply. And then you'd see eligible for women over 40. So
Mm.
my number one reason for not getting a mammogram, aside from the fact that you kinda had to face some scary truths about, losing your mom to breast cancer, is and you kinda just wanna, like, not think about it at all and kinda have it in the back of your mind, is the financial aid. So, that's what's really exciting once we get this grant program out to see how many young women we're able to help and know that, like Amber said, a medical bill isn't gonna stop you from taking measures to ensure that your health and your safety are taken care of, because a medical bill versus your well-being, at the end of the day, you're gonna choose your well-being.
Mhm.
Yep.
Hopefully, right? That's the
Yes,
goal.
hopefully. It's a tough
But
choice. It's a really hard choice.
in the moment, right? Where everything is kind of such a mess right now, and especially I think like women in this audience in this age range, there's a lot of instability. There's a lot of I don't have health insurance. And it's so you make a decision in a moment, right, to save that buck, and then unfortunately down the line when it really has to happen, it could be too late. And again, it's of the fact that one of that is the barrier for people that you could be putting yourself in an insane amount of like in a terrible
Debt,
position. Yeah, yeah, and just like
stress.
I said, putting something off that you could have caught but you didn't because you didn't have the funds and you don't think that it of course, you don't wanna think about it, right? Maybe especially if you are in the high risk category of potentially having the gene or having someone close to you, it's a hard truth to face. A lot of people decide not to do that testing because they just don't
Yep.
want to know and have the philosophy of just living life, and what happens, happens, and, whatever your choice, no judgment there. But for the people who, do want to know and are seeking but are being held back for other things, it's just like, again, these barriers that don't need to be there shouldn't be there. You should just be able to get a fucking mammogram if you decide you want to and like or you're feeling weird and off, right? You know your body. And can you talk a little bit about some factors that may put you in that higher risk category, cuz you said you didn't have the gene but you're still in the 20 percentile like higher risk
Yeah.
category?
So before I answer that
Yeah.
question, and you were talking about, would I do the gene test?
Mhm.
Do I wanna know? Um, do I even have to worry about it? So, 1 in 8 women will get diagnosed in their lifetime. My mom did not have the gene, and we do not have any known family history of breast cancer. Same with Nadine, and we meet lots of women at our events who also don't have a known family history. So, that's where really knowing your body and noticing any changes or symptoms that don't go away and not being afraid to, like Amber said, be your own best advocate and ask your provider for the care and the treatment to look at these symptoms rather than overlooking them. Um, and so different factors that play into risk. From what I've learned, we have a gene counselor on our board and our team. She's amazing. Um, one thing is having family history. And some women, I've had women come up to us at events and almost just shrug their shoulder and be like, oh, yeah, it's just my grandma or my great grandma, but it's still in your family history, and that does put you at risk. And that's where Haley might say, let's consider doing a gene test to see if you have any gene mutations. There are some other factors that play. For example, my mother was 100% Ashkenazi Jew, so I'm genetically 50%, even though I was raised Jewish. So, like, culturally and practicing, I'm Jewish, but my gene pool is 50%, and for some reason, Ashkenazi Jews tend to have a higher risk
Hmm.
of breast cancer, as do, I believe, women of color and Latinas, and I am 50% Ecuadorian. Um, and then breast density. So this is one that just came up for me on Friday. I had my mammogram. It was a process to get it. There were lots of hurdles still. It was really frustrating. I really thought my 5th year getting a mammogram would be the easiest yet, and I literally told my husband that it was naive of me to think it would be easy, and from here on out, till I turn 40, I'm gonna expect it to be hard, and hopefully, at least, it won't have as much of a, negative impact on my mental health because it's
Mhm.
that frustrating. Um, so they told me that I am a D for breast density, and I wanna say that the highest density is an E. So I have the second
Wow.
most dense type of breast, and something that a lot of young listeners might not know is that younger women tend to have higher breast density,
Hmm.
and that does put you at risk. So if you ever do get a mammogram, they might tell you to consider getting a breast MRI 6 months after your mammogram to look deeper into the breast tissue because a mammogram might not spot what they need to for, prevention or, looking
Interesting.
for signs of cancer. And so the mammogram tech sent me home with a little card, which I loved because then I could actually look at it. Because if a medical professional's rambling off numbers, like, I can't retain numbers in my head. I'm not a
Mhm.
math person.
Yeah.
You throw the
Same.
percent sign, it really goes, like, over my head. So,
Uh-huh.
I think I'm
I take notes.
Yeah.
36.5% lifetime risk, whereas my gene test said, basically just under 22%. So I forgot to ask her, but I'm thinking that it has to do with my D breast density
Uh-huh.
category and my genetic test results. So, those are things that have only really recently been highlighted, especially for young women, but the FDA made a ruling last year in 2024 that when you get your mammogram, the mammogram center is obligated to provide you with your category of breast density. So
I love
please
that.
know that when you're going in for your appointment, if they forget
Noting
to
it
tell you,
now.
if they just refuse to tell you, they must. And that's going to help you navigate your routine care.
I love that you brought that up because I wanted to ask about that, see what your knowledge was there. First, so this was your 5th year getting a mammogram. Was this the first time that you were told what your breast density was?
No,
Or
second
okay.
time.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Um,
kind of coincides with that FDA ruling.
okay. And so this came up for me recently because it was, I don't know, maybe within the last 2 weeks for sure. Jen Gurecki of Coalition Snow was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she not in the last couple weeks, but, in the last couple of months, but in the last couple weeks, she made a post and shared a bit about her story, like, literally as she's sitting in the chair getting chemo and, about it was breast density. So because she has high density breasts, they did the mammogram and said, "You need to go get an MRI because I'm not sure if we can, we can't might not be able to see something." She got the MRI, that's when they found the lump, and so my question after hearing her story was, like, how do you know if you have dense breasts, and again, like, if you can't find that out until getting a mammogram, like, that's another crazy thing if, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I'm at higher risk because I can't get the mammogram first and, like, just this, like, catch-22, right? Do you know how they test that? How you know if there's a way that you can at least maybe use that in your advocacy of, like, saying, "I have dense breast tissue, so I need," like, "I am up higher in this category for risk," or something?
I'm no medical expert, but I believe it's the mammogram that tells the one reading your images
I
of what
see.
your category of breast density is.
I'm wondering, hopefully, like, I mean, maybe that can be a way to at least, like, advocate for yourself of just having this knowledge, knowing that the higher the breast density, the more at risk you might be, or a mammogram might not see it to be able to at least, like, say, as you're trying to get that appointment, like, kinda bring it up, like, again, maybe a family history of like, "Well, my mom has breasts dense," like, or
Mhm,
dense breasts, like, some
mhm.
kind of way, and using anything you can to get those appointments because the fact that this is year 5 for you and it's still as difficult as it is, I'm glad you shared that
Understand.
and mentioned the fact that you've put it in your head that until you're 40, this is probably gonna be difficult and just already setting yourself up for a mental headspace when you go to schedule it because what I was thinking is, like, just kinda prepare yourself, maybe set aside a whole fucking day and say, "Today, I am going to take these steps to do this and set yourself up for a potentially mentally and emotionally challenging day. And so, however, you might need to get through that, whether it's like taking the day off so that you have time to take care of yourself in those frustrations. Maybe that means you're able to like get off the phone and go for a bike ride or go snowboarding or go something to release some of those frustrations, or call a friend who has maybe dealt with it before, or at least, even having Tits Deep resources, knowing there's other people out there that struggle with this and it's so frustrating and annoying and you just want to hang up the phone and stop calling people and getting the runaround. If you can set yourself up for that a little bit mentally, I feel like it's gotta help a little. Because even for me personally, the other day, I kinda took a day off. Like, I didn't work till 4 p.m., and I decided I was not gonna get on the computer at 8 a.m. and do other work until then, and it's been on my list to call insurance for our trailer, not health, for literal months because our payment's insane, and I just had to set myself up like, "Okay, I don't have anything else on my agenda until 4 o'clock, and I'm just gonna have to go through this, what's going to be very annoying process because there's a lot of names and things here and there, and I'm gonna get the runaround." But it helped me so much to know that I didn't have anything else and I could just take the time and be like, I might have to make 500 phone calls and it may not be done today. And eventually it wasn't because they messed up the VIN number. And so I had to wait a whole day to change it. But the point being that I really had to talk to myself mentally to do it. Whereas, like, it's been on my to-do list board of like, okay, we'll take 15 minutes to make a phone call and just like get through it. It's like, no, I had to set myself up for half a fucking
Yeah.
day to get this done. And so something like this that is much more personal for a lot of people, probably too, especially if you are in that higher risk category, can be very emotional. And that emotional challenge, just takes it out of us physically as well. So just like if this is something that's been on the back burner on the to-do list, look at your calendar, block out a day, maybe call a friend ahead of time and be like, what are you doing on this Tuesday? Because I'm going to be trying to get this done, but like, let's hang out after. Are you gonna be around so I can call you and just maybe have to get some feelings or shit out? And as Amber said too earlier, like having the conversations with you at Rome Fest were the catalyst for her to take that off the back burner and get it done, because you just always think, I'll do it tomorrow. And as we know too, tomorrow sometimes is too late.
Yeah. Amber's about to get tits deep in her mammogram.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
is.
she is. And it was actually this accident that encouraged me, or like I stumbled upon this reference, or my doctor a year ago was like, here's something to go get a mammogram. And then when I hurt myself and was trying to schedule my MRI appointment, that's how I came across getting my mammogram scheduled. So it's like, uh, for how terrible this accident with my knee thing is, at least I like got my mammogram to fruition. So I'll take it as a
Mhm.
win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Steph, can you tell us what may be the first steps like someone could take who's interested? This has been on their plan, like how they go about even trying to schedule that first one. Any like quick hitter tips that you have for people who are going to maybe set this day aside to start gathering some information, or what information they might need readily available to try and streamline the process like as much as they can, because we also know this is obviously going to be so different from person to person, case by case, their insurance and all the hoops. But what are the few things at least that would be most helpful for them to have like kind of ready on hand to go that might help them get through it a little quicker?
I'll kind of compile my years of experience and some of the hurdles or barriers that could have even added more time or more "F this, I'm not doing this today"
Mhm.
attitude, because I literally texted, our OBGYN ambassador and our genetic counselor, Lauren Haley, and was like, "If I wasn't the founder of Tits Deep, F this, I wouldn't be getting my mammogram right now, like, I'm over it." Uh,
Wow.
but the thing that keeps me going is I am this huge advocate and spokesperson and the face of a brand that believes in young women's health care and access to these treatments, so I've gotta be the one to keep going. Um, One thing that really helps is being comfortable enough with your provider, whether they're your primary care doctor or your OBGYN women's health doctor, and sharing your family history and asking them questions. And then, finding out if you're entitled to mammogram screening. Screening means it's preventative. If I didn't have family history and I found a lump and told my doctor, they would most hopefully order me a diagnostic. So diagnostic means you're dealing with symptoms in a health scare. Whereas Amber and I are going for screenings for preventative care because of our strong family history. Hopefully your doctor takes all of those concerns and family history and factors seriously and writes you what's called a referral. So Amber and I can't, like a 6-year-old, call up our local imaging center and say, "Hi, I'd like to schedule my mammogram," and that's exactly what I did when I was 30.
Yeah, yeah, and
They
I bet that's what people would do. That's why this is
Yeah,
great. Like, how do I do
just let
this?
me be really self-sufficient and call the source, and the
Yep.
source will tell you, "No, you need a doctor's referral," and usually it has to be faxed. I don't know why medical practice still uses fax machines. Um So go directly to your doctor, PCP, or OBGYN. Then before they send the referral, make sure you find a imaging center that's in your network, right? Because we accidentally sent my referral this year to the center that was closer to where I'll be living.
Mhm.
And me and my doctor, who happens to be one of my oldest friends in Aspen, it's super cool. She just uh, finished residency over a year ago and got a job here in Glenwood.
Exciting.
So I was like, I
What
want
a
her to.
queen.
I've known
Love
her
that.
for 13 years, and she is a gem of a human. So I know she'll be that much more of a doctor. Um,
Mhm.
so that was just us, like, not we were thinking of convenience, not provider network. That added an extra half day of admin for me. It was really stressful. Nobody's fault. We just didn't think. Make sure your referral gets sent to an in-network provider. And then on the back end, contact your insurance carrier and see what your benefits eligibility is. Ask them if you have strong family history. Will my insurance cover my mammogram screening? Use the word screening and preventative. And hopefully they do. And if not, like my new insurance, my husband just got employer-sponsored insurance, so I'm on his plan now. So we literally just changed this Monday unexpectedly.
Yay.
And it's an awesome plan, but not for mammograms because they're like, "Well, you have to be over 45." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not, and I have really strong family history." And they're like, "Well, let's check to see if diagnostics will cover you." And it's not a diagnostic. I don't love that they have to bill it as diagnostic because there's nothing wrong with me, and I don't want it to go on my MIB report. But
Mhm.
they said, "No worries, like, we'll bill it as diagnostic and your mammogram's free." So, okay, fine. My mammogram is not out of my pocket. Do I love that it's a diagnostic? No. Why does it have to be that way? So stupid. Just give me the preventative and call it a day. So, I would say those things, and then sometimes when you schedule your appointment after the doctor sends your referral, you might have missed the voicemail from the appointment setter, or it's up to you to call and make the appointment at your chosen in-network imaging center. Um, the appointment setter might say, "Oh, you're too young and your insurance isn't gonna cover you." I've had last year, uh, the center tell me that my insurance isn't gonna cover me. They don't know my insurance plan, and actually they
Right.
Mhm.
first 3 years, so why wouldn't they cover me last year? And when she told me that, I had already asked my insurance company 3 times if they would cover me, but she planted such seeds of doubt in my head that I called my insurance company again. So,
Dang.
maybe get it in writing, whether it's a
Mhm.
live chat or maybe the person on the phone can email you your benefits package, just in case you get pushback, because sometimes the people at the front of the office don't actually know what they're talking about and are
Mhm.
generalizing things that aren't
Mhm.
specific to you. Um, and that way, you're not letting someone at the desk who's literally their job is to put you in the calendar and not treat you, misinform you to the point where it fools you into not getting your mammogram.
Those are all so, so helpful, and I think that just, again, having that information ready at hand can, you have your little checklist, like, to take one step, right, that day, like, I'm gonna start with just calling or talking to my primary care provider at my next appointment because you really can't go down the list without
Mm,
completing the first one, right? And so and I feel this way about, anything when it comes to like health. If you don't feel heard by your doctor, not the doctor for you.
yeah.
And I also understand that it is obviously very hard or can be very hard to find a great doctor for insurance reasons, network reasons, and all that. But um, it's just something to take into consideration, at least if you have the ability to find a new primary care doctor or women's health doctor, whatever it is, and you feel that, like, yeah, you're kind of being pushed off, like, try and find someone else, or at least talking about it, right? Even just talking about it, the more
Mhm.
people you talk to about it, like, you might be able to find new resources then and someone who can help you out, or at least you're talking with someone who can resonate, relate, and give you the strength to, like, go back and fight at that one doctor or something, just, like, keep on keeping on, and, yeah, it's super
Mhm.
frustrating that we have to be in these positions and have to go through all this, but that is where we're at right now, and hopefully the more that we do fight for it and, are getting these screenings and things, then hopefully we can move that needle to changing things. I mean, I guess it's a good sign that the FDA did move mammograms from 45 to 40. It's slow moving as with everything, especially right now in this country, but we have to keep moving forward even if it is at a snail's pace to get it to actually change. So I would just, yeah, do you have this, like, on Tits Deep, the website, do you have resources like this where this is spelled out for people? Or, I mean, we will put that, like, kind of bullet points in the show notes too, but I also wanna be able to, like, link directly to resources if you have them there for the people.
We have certain, facts, but I'm not sure if we have it laid out in that order. But one thing I wanted to say when you were speaking on not being afraid to change your provider if they're not listening to you or if you don't feel in alignment or comfortable around them is, yeah, don't be afraid to fire your doctor. It feels empowering when you say it that way, you're not actually firing them, but, like,
Yeah.
you are because 'cause you're like, "Bye, I'm leaving you and I'm going to a new doctor."
Bye,
Deuces.
Afraid
Felicia.
fire your imaging center.
Yeah.
I've gone to 3 imaging centers now. Last year, I scheduled an appointment with the same doctor who wrote the same referral for the 3rd year in a row, and they put me in the system, and 10 minutes later, I had a missed call saying, "We had to cancel your appointment," and they didn't give me a reason, and it didn't make sense, and I called, and they said, "We had to cancel your appointment because your doctor should have been sending you diagnostic referrals the last 3 years, and somehow we missed it," and I'm like, "No, he's sending a screening because it's a screening. It's not a diagnostic. There's nothing wrong with me, and I don't want that on my MIB." And thankfully, I have the freedom and the honor to be able to just directly text Haley and Laura, the OBGYN and gene counselor on our team. And Haley walked me through the National Cancer Guidelines that says any woman under X age with family history should be entitled to a screening. So I quoted that to the manager of the imaging center, and they wanted to put me on hold and then call me back. And I said, no. I was actually a bulldog that day. Usually I'm
I
pretty like
love it.
Get it.
aggressive, and I was like medium plus spicy that day. I was like, "No, you're putting me through to the manager now." And they kinda, like, cowered, and they did, and out of her mouth, she said, "Well, this center doesn't go by those guidelines." So I straight up went to my insurance company. I said, "Tell me all the other imaging centers in this zip code," and I fired that imaging center because they refused to give me my screening and would only, offer me a diagnostic, and the new center didn't have an issue with accepting my screening referral. Um, the women on the phone like the past center were like, "Well, why do you need one? You're so young and it's unnecessary." And then I tell them that my mom died and then they get really sorry about it. And it's like,
Yep.
why did you have to ask in the first place? Who cares? Just give
Mhm.
me what my
Mhm.
doctor sent you. So
Yeah,
I
if
hope
your
more
doctor sent
centers will
it.
not do that to young women because it could be triggering and half the time it makes me tear up on the phone.
Yep.
Um, but then the 2 centers here in the Roaring Fork Valley, one of them was so much harder to deal with, and thankfully, it was my out-of-network provider, and the in-network provider, the way they just manage their patients and their care was so much more seamless and less barriers to care. So, that's just another thing, if you don't jive with your imaging center or they're giving you all this BS that isn't true, find a new imaging center.
Yeah.
I love getting this out there to the people because, you being immersed in this organization and having a team and having some resources there, it's like a lot of people aren't gonna dig for that, right? They're not gonna know, but the more we can spread it out there and say, like, "This is within your, like, rights." Again, the fact that we have to is insane, especially when it comes to healthcare. All of this is absolutely wild to me that it's so hard when it's preventative, when typically preventative care should be what insurance cares about most, because if you're
Yeah.
doing that, then maybe they spend less money down the line on fixing you after something has happened. Like, let's be preventative. Who's not on board for that? Why is the
Yeah.
healthcare system not on board for preventing illnesses? I'm not going to go into a rabbit hole or conspiracy theories on things, but like it's insane. And
It is.
the lack of bedside manner in the medical industry too. I mean, a lot of doctors, it's kind of a toss up. Some people become
Yep.
doctors because they are really great with people and want to, help them get better. Others are very more like just into the science part of it,
Mhm.
and do not relate to people well. But it is, and I get it's gotta be difficult working in an office and trying to talk to people, and you're just the one, the messenger, right? Relaying the messaging and having to take the anger from the patients on the other line, and they can be between a rock and a hard place, but when you get on the phone to, like, the manager, and again, they're, like, looking at this saying, "Nope, sorry," like, "But you have the paperwork from my doctor." What's the problem? What is
Yeah,
the problem? Don't
seriously.
we all have to survive? Like, you're getting
Yeah.
money from someone to do this,
Yeah.
so why don't you just do it?
Valid point. And
It's
it's
like when
like,
you're trying to pay. Yeah.
do they go through training to be assholes? Like,
Yeah.
what?
It's it's just
Certified.
yeah.
Mhm.
So wild how difficult it is, but again, it's why I appreciate you being around so much and doing what you're doing with Tits Deep and providing resources for younger women who, maybe have a lot of reason to go and are afraid to or don't know how to approach it, or there's a lot of women out there too who maybe they don't know for multiple reasons, don't have a family history, whether it's like adoption or, just like weren't close to their family, don't have a family tree or anything like that. There's so many reasons. And then also the fact of what you said about Nadine and your mother, like there was no family history prior. So that is
Yeah.
not like just going to be the only thing that matters. It happens, and again, is happening more and more, it seems, this day and age. So I think that honestly, all of us should be out there in our 30s, like fighting that fight to get it done because we're just in a time of life where there's a lot more illnesses around, and if
Mhm.
the earlier you can catch it or at least make these regular appointments and things, it's like, why not if you want to be that preventative? Again, some people are it's not on their mind, and that's totally fine, but for the people who want it done, it shouldn't have to be so hard for them to get it done. And again, just the whole story of Tits Deep and the connection and the because that's what I feel like it truly brings is a connection with others, and how, you and Amber both saying you don't really resonate with like the Pink Ribbon and the other organizations that are doing, whatever good or great things they're doing. I feel like it's still not the type of community that Tits Deep is building because today, actually, in Tahoe, was a ride-athon for Tits Deep, the second annual with the Dames of Dirt, which I had to miss to be at this coaching clinic I was at this morning. I'm so bummed, but they were taking laps on this local trail, and you were pledging like a certain dollar amount for each lap. So they're just lapping, I think, wood splitter here in Tahoe, like $10 a lap, $20 a lap, and seeing how many you could get. This is also just creating a community of women to get out and shred together and rip and
Yes.
ride and have fun, which then goes back to just having that network for when you're ready to sit down and maybe make these appointments. You've maybe met that friend at this event that you can call on and say, "Oh my god, let's go ride bikes because I gotta get out of my house and off the phone because this was so freaking frustrating." So yeah, it's just this
Dual
community, this
purpose.
network of other women that you can relate to in so many other different ways, which again, our core audience here is like women getting out, getting after it, mountain biking, snowboarding, all those things. So, I get just a great way to connect with others. And speaking of that, I know we're kind of coming up on our time here. We've touched so many great points, but I really want to make sure we mention you're going to be doing another event here in Tahoe with the Dames of Dirt and myself with this film that you've been working on. I don't know how much you're ready to speak about the film or anything, but if there is much you can share about it or want to now, feel free to.
Well, first off, I just wanna say how much I admire the Tahoe community, and I've been seeing dollars coming through on the Tits Deep Gmail account. So shout out to Dames of Dirt and the Tahoe chapter for Tits Deep led by Jill, all the sponsors and all the girls and guys that are lapping wood splitter and raising funds for Tits Deep and awareness and also just, strengthening the Tahoe community. So I'm super stoked that we have another reason to come together in December with Tearing It Up, Dames of Dirt, and Jill from Tits Deep to host a screening at, um, Tahoe Brewing Company?
Truckee Brewing
Truckee
Company.
Brewing Company, it's right on your hat.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think it'll be really cool because there definitely is something special about your guys' community, even though I'm also in a mountain town, but you guys seem really tight-knit there, and I know that you'll draw a crowd. So we are in post-production of a short film that we poured everything into. We filmed once last August and once this February, so 2 weeks of filming, and we had a filmer come in from Taos, Leah, and a filmer come
Cool.
Michigan, Grace. They're incredible, and they actually have never captured women's community and a women-led initiative, um, in front of the lens. They're actually wildlife
Oh,
filmers,
wow.
but they're very passionate women, and it's so special to see how much this project means to them and the little crew family that has come of that with our Tits Deep team and the two of them. So this has been a big dream of mine since that first year that Tits Deep was becoming something beyond a one-off campaign for my friend. Our friendship meant a lot to me, and she lost her life to breast cancer, very ironically on Ride on Jake Day, Jake Burton's day. So what's really cool is that year, there were world-class snowboarders at that mountain, um, lapping, and, um, it was also the day that she passed away, so just wild to see, like, people showing up for Jake, Burton, the founder of Burton Snowboards, and then people showing up for Nadine, who at one point in her life um, we just had a conversation and she was like, "Yeah, Steph, snowboarding saved my life." And I actually said in my speech at her celebration of life, um, towards the end of the speech, I don't remember, maybe it wasn't towards the end. And I said that, what she had said to me, and how I didn't get it at the time because for me it was surfing. When Nadine passed away and the months leading up to it, I turned to snowboarding. Um, I would go sit in the trees by myself. Um, I found solace, like, it was a way for me to grieve and find some sort of stability. Um, and so it was, like, almost this, like, full circle moment of, like, "Okay, Nadine, like, whatever," like, for me, it's surfing, even though I was just as hardcore of a snowboarder as her. Um But then to be standing in front of, 100 plus people celebrating her life and remembering her and being like, "Yeah, right now snowboarding is saving my life." So, the movie kind of captures, like, that sisterhood in snowboarding. Like, she was my number 1 powder day buddy. We had our days where, like, we weren't having a good time because something was going on in our life, and we'd be like, "Let's go hike the bowl at Highlands." And we came up with a motto together because it's boot pack steps that never freaking ends. And it's like, it blows your lungs out, and sometimes it's so windy and blizzardy you can't see your own hands, and I've been knocked over before. There was one day where a ski patrol was like, "Oh my god, are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I was just hovering, waiting for that wind gust to pass, and actually feeling very at peace even though it was absolute chaos on the
Mhm.
skinny ridge line with, like, sheer drop-offs, and you can't see anything and it's freezing, and insanely windy, but we would say one step in front of the other, as in, like, keep going, so, like, I don't know, like, our relationship was so heavily surrounded and involved with mountains, and that's how it started and that's how it finished. So, I know a lot of people will get and appreciate that, and
Mhm.
also it's just a way to share, like, who she was and what that meant to her and to me, and then kind of how the storyline evolves and how Tits Deep evolved was it really was built around grief. Nobody thought she was gonna pass away. She wasn't supposed to pass away. She was cancer-free after her double mastectomy, and then 8 months later was experiencing pain in her body that not one single MRI or hospital in our area could just tell her it was cancer until it was too late. Um, and so I kept showing up for Tits Deep. After I gave myself 2 weeks of, like, not doing anything at all, I knew I had to, like, take a step back. That's the only time I've taken a step back from Tits Deep was those 2 weeks really after she had passed away. Um, and so how we've created this community and how this community celebrates women and women in the outdoors and how we embrace everybody's story and how when women come to our event and they are a survivor or they are in treatment, nobody else would know it. And that gives them normalcy. And I think that's something really special about what we
Yes.
offer. And it gives them a breath of fresh air to be around young, vibrant women who love rafting or mountain biking or backcountry ski touring. Um, and then, of course, it, talks about the advocacy work that we do. But I mean, most of the film is us being outdoors while we're, you know, sharing those different things, so I think it's gonna be really cool to see how the Tahoe community receives it.
I'm super excited. I think it will be so well received just because, like you said, it's a tight-knit community here in Tahoe. A lot of mountain towns can be that way, but they can also be a little more spread out just depending on where you're at. But I think the backcountry community here does definitely there's a big crowd, tight-knit, and they so many people can just resonate, I think, to finding an activity, whether it's being out in the backcountry in the snow or, like, just being outside to find that peace or solace or the healing, right? It's been a
Yeah.
big conversation in the last year with public lands facing shutdowns and all these things going on. A lot of folks are realizing, like, wow, the outdoors is like really where I can find some peace in whatever activity that may be. So I think the messaging of this film can just really to so many people and how you can find that healing in those spaces. And then also at the same time, build on that community because a lot of these things it's hard to go out and do alone. So with all of these events that I, help put on or host or am a part of, like to me, a big part of it is trying to widen that community so you can
Mhm.
find more people to connect with, to have those activities or those people that you need to lean on during those times. And I just feel like, yeah, this night will be so fun and cool and like open to all. I do a lot of women's focused events, and though the message here with like breast cancer obviously has like a through line to women, it's like this affects men too.
Yeah.
And like losing people, breast cancer, all of the things. So I think it'll be a great event for men and women, everyone to come together and yeah, just support each other and again resonate and relate with. So I'm stoked to see the film and to see what the Tahoe community comes together to do for it. Because 'cause we'll also, put together a raffle that will benefit Tits Deep, so working on collecting some things for that still, but there will be a way for you all to be able to help support Tits Deep. And speaking of that, what are other ways that people can support Tits Deep other than like following? So you see local events from like the chapters putting on like what the Dames of Dirt have done here with a few different events and what you have done with like Girls Get After It and Kari Trial recently. How can, yeah, people support outside of those events?
One way is buying the merchandise from our online store, and, we really keep everybody in mind, so we choose colorways that anybody can wear, and we have a donate button on our website, so if you're feeling in the giving mood, you can set up a monthly or a one-time, and that goes directly to that grant program we spoke about for women under 40's early detection treatment. And then just continuing to follow along on Instagram to see how we grow, where we go. We're in conversations with um, possible chapter leads in different states. We actually just spoke to someone in Bend, and we're starting a chapter up there. So those are some of the ways, and keeping an eye on where we'll also be getting our film shown at.
Love it. Do you have I know we have, like, our audience spans, but because Amber and I also have roots in Washington, she's in the Tacoma area, I know that some of our longtime, like, loyal listeners, we have a crew up there. Is there a chapter currently in the Northwest area?
There's not. We definitely have some people out in Washington who are stoked on Tits Deep, but we haven't networked with anybody who is serious about becoming a chapter leader and kind of taking the reins and making events out there for the
And
PNW.
if, wherever people are, if they're interested in that, do you have a contact form or something on the website where they can reach out and kinda find out what really it takes to be involved in setting up a chapter?
Yeah, for now it's our contact us page, or maybe it's called connect with us, and I'm on the other end of the email, so I'll be the one talking to you and, seeing if we're a good fit.
Awesome. I love that. And I also just want to quick plug into merch as far as like donating or a way to support because obviously if you can donate and like it on that monthly basis, that's amazing. But personally, I think buying merch can just do so much more because you're a walking advertisement for this organization. So, if you're going to if you can donate too, but I mean, if you can go buy that hat or that sweatshirt or shirt or whatever, I would do that, people, because they say you're
Yeah.
walking around, people are gonna see it. It starts conversations, and it's just again, little brands or nonprofits like those that can be so, so, so much more helpful than like a donation, especially for like just a tax write off or something, whatever. Like showing your support out into the world does so, so much for these little things because it's like Steph works full time as well. Like, not like she's hustling tits deep on top of, making another living as well in trying to also, enjoy life and mountain bike and snowboard and have time for all that. So we're all hustling as much as we can on the side and then just pouring everything we have into these other things. So, like, if you really, really want to help and can, I would say, like, buy that hat, buy the shirt. Those are great things to gift to people as well because, again, just that walking advertising and getting the word out and the name out is so beneficial to these organizations. So hop on that website. All the links will be in the show notes and 'cause it'll bullet point the kind of list there that Steph brought up for, making that first appointment or whatnot. And if you have any questions, like you're talking to Steph on the other end of those emails or DMs, so just like reach out, and I hope that everyone out there feels a little, I don't know, more empowered to go advocate for themselves in the very scary and overwhelming medical system that we have.
Mhm.
But before we get out of here, I just want to leave it to you, Steph, one more time to let people know like where they can find you, or if there's anything else that you want to leave anybody with, feel free to.
The best way and where we're most active is our Instagram, which is at Tits Deep for breast cancer. And then our website is titsdeepforbreastcancer.com, where we have our online merch shop. And then it shares a bit about our background story. And that's also where you can connect with us via email.
Awesome. Amber, do you have anything before we get out of here?
Great conversation, ladies. Very amazing.
I
I hope
also
we inspire some people.
I love your pink. Was that on purpose?
No. This is just my, at-home being lazy pajama set that just happens to be pink.
Love it, love it. But I also feel like we're changing the narrative. It doesn't just have to be pink, right?
Nope,
So
definitely not.
as we head into winter here soon, I hope all of us can get out there and get some of our tits deep in the powder.
Yeah.
And stay
Yes.
tuned for like event updates for Tits Deep all around. And yeah, if you're interested or in getting involved or whatnot, go hit up the Instagram or the website. And thank you all so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.